so hard. Summer living spring, we're gonna thrive. Go, 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 oh, shout it out loud. Hear the summer sun, we're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Talking Brazil Ball. Looking back at the week that's been in Brazilian football. I'm here as always with my host, George. George, another week's upon us. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, hello, James. Not too much really. Same old, you know. And looking into the Brazilian football, you know, excited as always to have a chat about it, and you know, some interesting results, of course. And yeah, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been fine. I mean, we said last week that it was just one game week, didn't we? And then we got caught out. There was actually two, or more or less two. But this week, I think I'm pretty right in saying there was just one. So we are back to normal. There was one last week. There's one this week. There's one, I think, next week as well. So we're kind of back to one a week, which is what we kind of like because it gives us time to pour over the week properly and we don't miss out on anything. We can't, the listeners don't miss out on anything. So, yeah, I've been all right. I've enjoyed the kind of the weekend action, really. And the weather, again, has been decent, hasn't it? I mean, there's been a few riots and that around the UK. Have you been getting involved in any of that?
No. No, James, no riots I'm not been rioting at all. But yeah, there has been a lot of unsavory scenes, of course, and yeah, so it's not good at all. But there you go, and back to, of course, the football. There is one a week for the foreseeable future, really, James, which is really good. I think, yeah. So yeah, we've got kind of one match week a week, so it's great, But like I said, back to normal, a little bit easier to take a look at potentially as well. I know you'll be interested, James, actually, because it's your team, isn't it, playing next Wednesday, which we all know what day that is. So yeah, hopefully they win for you there. But and you're wearing a Spanish shirt, aren't you, James, today? Before we get going on it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got five-a-side straight after the pod, really. So I thought I'd get changed quickly and Viva España. Obviously done well in the recent kind of Euros, so a good one to sport these days. What have you got on there? Some kind of green?
Well, it's actually one of your old ones, actually, James. You donated to me at one time, so yeah, it's nothing special. This one, it's the training top, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, PSV, obviously, a very good spot for Brazilians over the years. You think about Romario, Ronaldo. They've had a few come through there through a few legends, really, as a first spot in Europe. So perhaps a good one, actually, George, in terms of Brazilian. Me, not so much. I've gone completely the wrong way, but.
Well, of course, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right, James. That, like you said, it's a happy hunting ground for many a famous Brazilian over the years. So an inspired choice, perhaps.
Absolutely. Well, before we go any further, let's take a look back at that match week that was. Just one round of fixtures, so each team played just the once. George, do you want to round those up for the listeners?
Yeah, as always, James, it'd be a pleasure of mine to do. So it started on Saturday, the 3rd of August. Vitoria 1, Cuiabá 0, Vasco da Gama 2, Red Bull Bragantino 2. Into Sunday, then 4th of August, Atletico Gio 1, Botafogo 4, Criciúma 2, Galo 1, Sao Paulo 1, Flamengo 0. Atletico Paranense 0, Grêmio 2, Corinthians 1, Juventude 1, Fluminense 1, Bahia 0, Inter 1, Palmeiras 1, and Cruzeiro 1, Fortaleza 2.
Yeah, fantastic. So as always, let's begin with our games of the week, George. Again, we picked two fixtures, and we were just saying, weren't we, off air, that we always seem to pick ones that just don't end up kind of really igniting. And to be fair, you've picked one here, which always there was probably a chance that might have happened. Because you went with a relegation scrap, didn't you? You went down the other end of the table. So let's do your one first, George. So you were looking at Vitoria, weren't you? Was it Vitoria Cuiabá, wasn't it? So Vitoria, a much-needed win for them. 1-0 was the final score. What was your takeaways from the game, and how did you see it? Do you think, I mean, Cuiabá have kind of become a bit mired down at the bottom now, haven't they, all of a sudden?
Yeah, well, Cuiabá, James, are on really bad form. It's 4 defeats in a row in all competitions. They're out of the Copa Sudamericana as well. They lost to Chilean side Palestino.
Oh yeah, Palestino. Yeah,
A
very
couple.
political side actually.
Is
Palestino.
it? Oh, okay. That was last week sometime, I think, or a couple of weeks ago. They lost 3-2 on aggregate. So they're out of that. They've no wins in 5 in all competitions. Like I said, 4 defeats in a row. They're looking a little bit. They're not looking too good, James, if I'm honest. The second bottom now. Obviously, they're a few points ahead of GO and not too far away, only 4 points adrift of Inter in 16th position. So they're not too far away. I think after this game, Petit, the manager, obviously former Portuguese international player, it was quite refreshing, really. Some managers lament the referee and all this and that, the other, the officiating of it, decisions. He just said, yeah, we weren't good enough. We didn't deserve anything from it. He wasn't happy with how they just kind of they just fell apart in the latter stages of this game. And he's also, I think, worried Petit about his team's sort of how they're attacking teams that just sit back in a low block. I think basically Vitoria was sat deep, knew what they were doing, soak up the pressure from Cuiabá. Cuiabá had a lot of possession in this game, more than Vitoria did anyway. And then Vitoria would hit them on the break. But Vitoria did have a lot of chances, James. 17 shots in all, but only 3 on target. So they weren't very potent in front of goal. The goal that won it itself was actually a well-worked goal, really. Cross ball over from the left. One of the fellas got on the end of it was a fella by the name of Ale Randro, and he crossed the ball over for the goal scorer, Wagner Leandro, who you can see behind me celebrating. It was a headed goal in the 70th minute. He's a centre-back, actually, James. Only his third goal of the season. And that ended up winning the game. And Vitoria's manager, of course, is Tiago Carpini, formerly, of course, of Sao Paulo at the start of the season. He was suspended for this game, James. So they were led by their assistant manager for this one. And like you said, they've improved. 2 wins in a row, vital wins. That really, really impressive win over Palmeiras last time out. 2 clean sheets. They're going all right. They're going all right. And although they're only 1 point ahead of Fluminense in the last relegation place at this moment, you've got to say they're not too bad. They're the highest scorers other than Krishuma in the bottom half, James. But also they've got to look at defensively. So those 2 clean sheets will have done them well, because only Atletico Gio at the bottom of the table have conceded more goals in the bottom half of the table than Vitoria. So they just need to look at that. But by the looks of the last couple of performances, they're addressing it. And just one point to also note on Cuiabá is that they're losing the striker, which leaves our pal Pitter, who is really a lot of heavy sort of. The onus has got to go on him now, because they're losing Davison. He's tying up a move to Garlo as we speak, really, now. He's in Belo Horizonte now, and he's tying up his move to Garlo. So it leaves Cuiabá a little bit short. And like I said, the sort of the onus is kind of going on our pal Pitter to kind of lead the line a little bit. And they're struggling, James. You've got to worry for them a little bit.
Yeah, birthday boy next week. Of course, Pitter will be celebrating along with him, won't we? Yeah, Davison. I think Davison's move has probably been quite long in the making. He was, I think, a bit slightly frozen out at the start of this season. I think he's come back into it a bit recently, hasn't he? Scored a couple of goals, but he was a big player for them last year. But I don't know if there was a falling out behind the scenes, but I know that he's been slated to go since the new year, really. So perhaps not a shock, to be honest, to Cuiabá fans in particular. But he's a good player, you know. Gallo, obviously, a bit of a step up for him, but you know, I know he did score goals last year, obviously pre-talking Brazil ball. So did it really happen? If it was pre-talking Brazil ball, who knows? We didn't see it, so can't
Well,
comment on that.
well, yeah, exactly, James. I mean, did it happen? It's that old thing, isn't it? If the tree falls in the wood, and nobody hears it. Did it fall? Who knows?
That's it.
But there's there's 12. He got 12 goals, like you said last season, and he's got 6 so far this season. Only 1 in Serie A. He hasn't played since the end of June. Yeah, maybe there's been a bit of a falling out. I mean, I was a little bit surprised to see this, and Gallo, like you said, is a step up. So interested to see how he affects my team and to see if he makes a difference there, because Gallo was struggling as well, like we know. But yeah, they've got to pull something out here. I can't see whether there's any incomings, but maybe they do something. One of them, like I said, because like we say, Peter is the only really sort of out and out number 9, and he's not even that really. He's been playing off the wings on occasions this season as well. So they're also selling left back Riquelme, young lad, 21-year-old Riquelme, to Saudi Arabia. He's going to play with Neymar for a fee of 2 million euros. So I think that equates to about 11.5 Brazilian dollars. So it's quite a lot of money, that really. And he's off to play with Neymar. So they've got to turn something around. Like I said, Petit wasn't hiding behind anything. I think he knows the sort of what they're up against here now. And I think we both tipped them to go down at the start of the season, didn't we, James? And you've got to say they started horribly. They picked up a little bit, but it's sort of true to form a little bit now, really.
Yeah, Petit started really well, didn't he? And they had a bit of a renaissance, and they looked like, because obviously they did have such scoring troubles early in the campaign, didn't they? And then they looked like they'd turned a corner a bit, and they have just tripped again a bit. I mean, but Vitoria, they were below Cuiabá before the last 2 games. Obviously, they got that enormous win at Palmeiras, but you'd possibly say that arguably the win against Cuiabá is bigger, really, in terms of how it can affect the table. So, yeah, big result for them. Cuiabá, I mean, it doesn't look particularly busy. They're behind Leonardo, they're celebrating. But, you know, obviously, you know, we don't know what the attendances don't tend to be amazing, I don't think. But, you know, maybe if they keep getting a couple of wins together, maybe a few more people will turn up to see them.
Well, to be fair, James, it was actually quite healthy, the attendance. Nearly 27,000 people attended this.
Good.
Although the stand does look dead.
Yeah.
26,923 was the
really
official attendance. So, yeah, really, really good. They're on a bit of an upward curve, like I said, after, 4 defeats in a row. They followed it up with 2 wins and 2 clean sheets. So, like I said, Carpini wasn't on the touchline for this one, but he was suspended. I don't know whether he's back for the game at Bahia next, this coming Sunday. Sorry. So let's wait and see, James. But a big 3 points for them.
Yeah, and if they keep up that kind of form, you know, lose 4, win 2 for the next, you know, second half of the season, they'd probably be all right anyway. So a couple of wins here and there can go a long way. Anything else you'd like to note from that game, George? Big win for Vitoria, poor for Cuiabá. Anything else caught your eye?
Not really, James. I don't think that's pretty much it, really. So, yeah, that's it, you know.
Cool. So, well, let's move on then to a game that was at the top end of the table, and that was my game of the week. You didn't pinch it off me this time, George.
No. There's always this week, James. Let's wait and see at the end. But
I think this week's a bit of a special week. I think in some ways there's a couple of games which will really, I think, you know, we have to cover basically. One of them might involve one of the teams I'm about to talk about. So Cruzeiro and Fortaleza were 2 of the form sides going into the the game, George. Both of them, as we've spoken about last week, were in, brilliant form. Fortaleza perhaps just edging it, and they obviously came out on top again. So Fortaleza are now third in the table, quite remarkably, after this win on Cruzeiro's home turf, Espirito Santo. So it was, a 2-1 win. They went 1-0 up, a good goal from Breno Lopez. Cruzeiro came back into it, Enrique with a really nice equaliser. So 2 really quite nice goals early on. And then Kaiser, yet again, who obviously you spoke about, George, last week, got the winner against Sao Paulo, did exactly the same this week. With a kind of a bundled effort against to win it against Cruzeiro. But they're 2 really big goals for Renato Kaiser. And I saw an interesting quote from him after the game, actually, where he was on loan in South Korea. Well, maybe not on loan, actually. I think he was playing in South Korea. October 2022, and he got a really bad rupture to his Achilles, which is, it can be a really devastating injury at times, and it took him 11 months to get back from that. So he was off playing for a whole year, and he came back. I think he joined America MG, and then he joined Criciúma for a short while at the start of this year, and he's only just joined Fortaleza, I think, in April. So, and he said he thought about retiring, basically. He's only 28. I mean, he must have been 26, 27 when he had this injury, maybe even a little bit younger. So, but he said he thought about retiring. He kept having setbacks. So, but he said his son, told him, don't give up, keep going, keep playing. And that's what he's done. And he's probably thankful that he did, or Fortaleza fans will be, because he's come up with 2 really big goals. And like I said, it was a bit of a scrappy finish, but it was enough to see them over the line here and put them in a position now which they really wouldn't have been expecting to be in. And, we've spoken a lot about Bahia in the early parts of the pod, and they've obviously, they're on a terrible run at the minute, but still in a decent position in 7th. But Fortaleza have, perhaps done almost the opposite. They started relatively okay, bit of a dip, and then they've just pushed on at more or less the right time now. And pushing into the second half of the season, if you're up in 3rd and looking good, you have to say that, they could be in with a shout at doing something pretty special.
Yeah, I think they are doing, James, here, because 7 wins, 7 undefeated. I think they've won 6 of those. It's an incredible sort of upturn in form. Like you said, they just sort of were chugging along nicely, and we were ignoring them for long periods of time because that's, because not intentionally, but you tend to look towards the action areas of the table, the top and then the bottom, and they were kind of in the middle. But now we can't ignore them anymore. They're into 3rd. Like I said, that incredible run of 6 wins out of 7, unbeaten in 7 games, and like you said, Kaiser, who is on loan from Criciúma, actually, Criciúma could do with him themselves, couldn't they, really? But, it's good to see. It's good to see a team, like you said, I made that sort of correlation in my mind as well with Bahia, who sort of had the surprise package of the first half of the season. Is it going to be Fortaleza for the second half and end it strong and potentially, like you said, James, do something special? I think it might be, Well,
one man who isn't getting carried away for sure is the manager, Juan Pablo Voivoda. He was asked, as managers often are, about the title. We must say that the 4 points off the top with a game in hand, that's a heck of a position to be in. But he said, no significant nada. So no significance. It doesn't matter. We're in a good position, he said, but it doesn't mean anything. And it is absolutely true. You have to look at the games, like you said, 6 out of 7. They beat Flamengo in that time, which was a standout result. They beat Flu when they were still poor. They beat Sao Paulo, which was probably the biggest result, and they've gone and beat Cruzeiro. But they have in amongst that beaten Vitoria quite helpfully, Atletico Gio, Criciúma they got a point against. So they have had a fairly safe run of games as well. So they've had to beat those teams, and obviously, like we said, the Flamengo result in particular was pretty special. But I think he recognises perhaps that there is harder games around the corner, possibly. Not for a couple of games. They've got Criciúma next. They've got Red Bull Bragantino. They look like they have a run of games that, again, could see them up towards the top of the table very deep into the season. But yeah, Voivoda's not getting carried away anyway. On the other hand, with Cruzeiro, absolutely, we were talking them up before the game, and I think rightly so as well. And they actually had a 100% win rate at home before this game, George. So they were the best team at home in the Brazilian route, and despite losing, they still are. So their percentage-wise, their record at the Espírito Santo is better than any other team's home record. Obviously, we know Grêmio and Inter haven't been playing at home every game, but you know they were pretty good at home, difficult to beat at home. Fortaleza now actually have taken them over as the best team at home themselves. So they now have the best record. No, they're the only unbeaten team. Fortaleza are the only unbeaten team. Cruzeiro have the best record overall. So, pretty special win really for Fortaleza. For Cruzeiro, the manager Seabra was saying that the pitch was the problem. So that's a bit funny really when you consider how good they have been at home. It was their home pitch. But he said the pitch got worse as the game went on. He said our problem was we didn't adapt as well as Fortaleza to the bobbly pitch. So that was interesting, given that, like I said, they were at home. Maybe a few of the pitch staff were getting a bit of pelters after that game, and we'll have to see if it improves for them. You'll know what that's like a little bit, I'm sure. But fifth in the table, still in a good position. They were only 4 behind Fortaleza, so this was a real kind of a game that was a shootout. Really, you felt like whoever won it could then kick on a bit, but teams come and go in these positions. It seems like anyway. But George, on the horizon is the horizon itself, Belo Horizonte, of course, which we're going to go into at the end, I'm sure. So Cruzeiro, it doesn't get any easier, and they'll be disappointed with this one. But Fortaleza train rolls on.
Well, yeah, that's it, James. We'll wait and see whether they can keep it up. But Cruzeiro, they're chugging along nicely as well, to be fair. 3 points, 2 points behind, Palmeiras in 4th, and they've got a game in hand on them. So, yeah, they won't be crying too much. Like you said, there's a big test coming up for them next one, isn't there? So they'll be raring to go for that one. So, yeah, let's see how they both get on.
Yeah, well, they do. They certainly will. Hopefully, the pitch is improved. Although I think it might be away the next game. Anyway, let's look at that later on. So that was the games of the week. 2 decent games in different kind of ways. You never know with these games, and we pick the ones that stand out to us. So those are the games of the weeks. Let's move on to the awards, George, as always. I'm sure everybody's keen to know who won these awards, and you were very much a driver behind these awards, I would say. So do you want to introduce the player of the round? Because to be quite honest, there wasn't a lot of standouts in this, and we've broken tradition, although we have done this before, and given it to a young player. So without further ado, George, do you want to introduce a new name certainly for us, a new name possibly for all the Talking Brazil Ball listeners as well out there?
Yeah, well, I assume it probably is. I mean, yeah, like you said, James, it was sparse this time with, play of the rounds. There wasn't many stands out, and as we'll speak about soon, the young players were really, really on form in this match week. So I thought, heck, let's give a young player a player of the round, and that man is a man by the name of Miguel Monsalve. And he's a Colombian. He's 20-year-old Colombian attacking midfielder predominantly, but he's a forward player. Can play anywhere along the front line. And I'm giving him the award because it's his first Brasileirão game. He came from Colombian side Independiente Medellin. Okay. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, so he came from them in only just last month. So yeah, it's literally his first start, thrown in at the start by Renato Gaucho, and he's repaid him with a goal. He played 65 minutes of this one. Grêmio were already 1-0 up by the time he scored the goal, and it wasn't nothing special, the goal itself, but it was quick thinking. The goalkeeper, Paranense goalkeeper, Link, made a bit of a hash of a pass back, and he basically just tackled him in, and it went into the net. But special moment for him on his first appearance in Brazil, and he's done it. Let's see what he can do going, into his career with Grêmio. I think the problem is sometimes, James, these players can set a really high bar for themselves. And you've got to say he has with that goal, even though it wasn't anything special. He's put his name on people's lips, on our lips as well. So, let's wait and see what he does from here.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, he's made a name for himself a little bit, and well done to him. It's Gremio in a slightly sticky situation over recent weeks, and he's helped to pull them out of it. So, as you said, the young players were really on point this week, and it's fitting really that we've given the player of the round one of them. So, well done to Miguel Monsalve. I think it's worth mentioning. I mean, there's a few things on Gremio that I want to go into actually, George, but I think it's just worth pointing out on that goal that Link, like you said, Leonardo Link, is obviously stepped into the number one shirt for Paranense since Bento Krepski has been sold. And, I think Paranense seem to have struggled a little bit over recent games. They're, again, one of these teams now that seem to have just disappeared from our radar ever so slightly. And yet I think the goalkeeper situation for them is perhaps one they want to address. He's played the last 6 games now, having been the backup previously. He's 23-year-old goalkeeper, so he is pretty young still, Leonardo Link. But yeah, it was a bad error, wasn't it?
It was, James. It was. Wasn't any hiding after that, was there? You know what I mean? Everybody makes them. We see them all the time up and down the globe. But, it's a bad one. You shouldn't really be making that sort of error, should you? You should just clear the ball or pass the ball. You should know who's around you. He wasn't aware of who was around him, and obviously Monsalve was. He was alive to the situation, and profited from that, and so did Gremio, that was only the 21st minute of the game, James, and they put themselves 2-0 up, and they obviously, saw the game out with relative ease from there. Really, it was a great result for Gremio because, they're one of them teams who are, in and around the mix for relegation at the moment. They're unbeaten in all competitions in the last 5, and they've won 3 of those games. So they're really coming strong. They've only conceded 2 goals in those 5 games. So, and we know, like you told me today, they've got a big name coming in, haven't they? And, imminently, as it were.
Yeah, they do. And they also are looking to be back home finally as well in the home stadium. On the 17th of August, I think it's against Bragantino possibly, but they're looking to get back home. So things are looking up. I mean, they stuck with Renato Gaucho. They could have possibly got rid of him. I'm sure there were certain factions of the fan base who perhaps would have liked to have seen him go. But he's turned it around. I mean, we must be careful in giving too kind of bigger praise because we've seen teams have these results and then they drop back into it. And at the end of the day, they did come second last year. So, Flu have taken a lot of the heat, but Gremio really shouldn't be in this position. But, I think the important thing to mention, like you said, they've got a big signing coming in, but they've also got young players who are really stepping up. Another one of them in this game was Gustavo Martins, who we gave a player of the round, perhaps, I think, or he was certainly in the conversation, one of the very early ones. And he got another goal, didn't he? He got a header. So both of the scorers in this game were, I think Martins is 21, Monsalve obviously is 20. So the young players are standing up for them.
They are, James. They definitely are. I think we did give him the first ever.
Yeah,
I think it was one of the first. I can't remember which award it was, to be honest, at the top of my head.
player.
Was it? Yeah, because he turns 22 on, I think it's Sunday. So
this was his last shot at the award.
Yeah, so of course we have a cut-off point, don't we? To of the age group where would be get you a young player of the award, young player of the round award. So yeah, he will no longer be in for that. Award.
He gave a good go. He gave a good go to win it on his last go, didn't he?
He did, and he won it. And on another day, I think he was man of the match in this game actually as well. So on another day, he would have got that award. But there are plenty of young lads proving themselves this week, and obviously we've gone with another boy, in this round, which we'll cover soon, I suppose.
Well, yeah. Another young player from Gremio to mention is Gabriel Mech, who I don't believe has made his first team debut for Gremio yet. Certainly, he hasn't been on our radar up until very recently. And the reason he's come onto our radar is because he looks like getting a move to Chelsea. I mean, what can you say about Chelsea at this point? It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how they're not being stopped. I don't know how people aren't having a word with them. I mean, they are scooping up some real talents, but you can't see how it ends well. And Gabriel Mech, I mean, what can you say? A kid who hasn't made his debut yet, 16 years old, he's not going to say no, is he? I mean, Gremio are getting almost 20 million for this, 20 million pounds for a 16-year-old who hasn't touched the first team. I mean, it's world's gone mad stuff, isn't it? Really, that, George?
It's ludicrous, really, James. But you know what I mean. They're not going to turn it down. He's not going to turn down the opportunity to. I mean, he won't play for Chelsea, will he? But it's certainly not right now. He'll go out on loan, or he might go to their sister club, Strasbourg in France. But you know, who knows? But he's not going to play for Chelsea. I will say this now, James. I know he might be an incredibly talented player. I don't think he'll ever play for Chelsea. You know, they've got so many players that come through at Chelsea that they buy. A lot of Brazilians seem to be there as well, and they never really get the opportunity to play. You know, out on loans and then they're sold. It's a bit like Man City. So many players come through the door that you don't even know about, and this is quite high profile because it's a big lot of money for a young lad. But yeah, I'll stick my hand out now. I don't think he'll ever play in a Chelsea shirt.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I'd say it's a bold call, but I don't think it is that bold. It's like you said, we see it happen a lot. Estevao, I think, is one who will play for them. He double the fee almost. I think even more, and looks like being a world beater to some degree anyway. But Mech, who knows? He's a completely unknown quantity, and we'll have to wait and see how he gets on. But it's a shame in a way to see. I mean, it is a shame that he couldn't come through at his hometown club and at least have a couple of years there. But that's the way it goes these days, and I don't think it looks like we will see him at all. Although, actually, no, having said that, he'll have to wait till he's 18, won't he? So he will actually get a couple of years at some level anyway. But yeah, that hasn't gone through just yet, but looks like it will. So let's keep an eye on that. And another one, George, like you said, you mentioned that they've made a big name signing, and it's a really interesting signing actually for Gremio, as Martin Braithwaite, the Danish international, who's had a really interesting career, hasn't he? And he's ended it perhaps. I mean, he's 33 now, 32. He's what you'd call a veteran anyway, and he's ended up at Gremio.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting signing, James. Like we know, we don't see many European players in the Brazilian Serie A, and here's another one that comes through. He's got pedigree. Obviously, he spent the last kind of he spent the last kind of 4 years or so in Barcelona, hasn't he? Obviously with Barca initially, then he moved to Espanyol. He had a fantastic season last season, 22 goals in the second division of Spanish football, La Liga 2. I think they got promoted. Espanyol, no, I don't think they did actually. I think they lost out. So they're still fighting it out in the second division, I think. From what I gather. No, sorry, they did get promoted. So he's obviously left a first division club to go and play in Brazil. It must be, yeah. It's real. I mean, really, really intrigued to see how he goes, James. I like him.
Yeah, he's a decent player. He gets a bit of, I don't know, he became a bit of a figure of fun. I mean, Barca went through a period of signing these players, didn't they? Luke de Jong and kind of journeyman centre forwards who really had no business being there, to be honest. But he did all right at Barca, I think, and he seems a bit of a character. I think he had a big falling out at Espanyol, from what I can gather, and he's apparently threatening to buy the club somehow. I think he's got a rich wife or something along those lines, or And there's some talk that he might buy Espanyol and then sack the whole board because he had a falling out. That's why he's left. I don't know what's gone on exactly, but anyway, he's ended up at Grêmio, and I've seen him speaking about how he's always been a big fan of Brazilian football. His dad always encouraged him to play like the Brazilians, and yeah, like you say, we don't see Europeans come to Brazil, and if we do, they tend to be Spanish or Portuguese, especially Italian. Perhaps you don't see many like a Northern European, certainly not Scandinavians in Brazil. So we'll see how he gets on. It's interesting to see. I mean, we tend to see these big names come in and then they inevitably get injured or something and end up playing a handful of games. And hopefully that won't be the case, but we'll have to wait on that one. And he'll obviously, well, hopefully be playing up top with Diego Costa, who as well I've seen is back in training now for them. So he's been missing for a while. He should be back before long. So things really starting to look up now for Grêmio. For Paranense, on the flip side of that, like we said, they're drifting a little bit. The young manager, I can't remember his name, Verini, isn't it? The Uruguayan hasn't really taken off just yet. They're still in the cup, which is kudos to them. They look like they possibly will get through to the semi-final, I think. So if they can do that, if they can win a cup, it'll be a successful season. However, it ends in the Brasileirão, won't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, James. Like you said, up against RB Bragantino tomorrow, as of recording, tomorrow night here. So yeah, be interested to see it. But like you said, if they can win a cup, it would be it would be seen as a fantastic season, particularly with Verini, being so young, coming in just a few weeks ago, I think it was, wasn't it? So yeah, they're a bit up and down, aren't they? But if they can, like you said, if they can just get things going, they've got Inter away on Sunday. So, that's a winnable game for them. If they can kickstart it with a win there, then, you never know. They're 2-0 up from the first leg of that Brazilian Cup game. So you'd probably fancy them to see the game through and get through to the latter stages of that competition. Like you said, with Grêmio, James, just going back to them, Diego Costa is back in training. He should be back for their cup game against Corinthians on Thursday. So, look, a front two of Braithwaite and Costa, that's potentially sort of lower side Premier League, you could argue, front line. So that's a really, really impressive front line. I am quite excited to see how Braithwaite gets on, to be fair. But yeah, Paranense need to just get on and win again. To be fair, they did go three with straight wins. 2 of them were in cup competitions. So before the defeat against Grêmio, so they're not in that bad form, really.
No, fair enough. Well, yeah, let's move on, Josh. So that was the player of the round, Miguel Monsalve and his Grêmio side. And let's move on to the young player. Like we said, the young players were having a ball this week. Yet again, George, I mean, there was a man we could have given it. I can't remember if we gave it him 2 or 3 weeks in a row. But Coward Elias has gone and scored again and gone and got the winner again for Fluminense. So yet another big goal for that young man, and he was in consideration, wasn't he, for young player of the round? Would it have been a 4th round in a row? Was it a 3rd in a row?
It would have been a 4th in a row, James. Yeah, I mean, look, if we were kind of, I think, happy really that there were a few other contenders for it. Elias has been fantastic. On another day, would have got the 4th in a row, but like I said, there were others that scored and probably might have deserved it a little bit more than him. Not that he's not deserving of it, because he's doing a fantastic job, James. 4th goal, is it 4th goal in 5 games? Another important moment to score the goal in right on half-time against Bahia gave Fluminense another 1-0 win. It was a header this time, but he showed his sort of fox in the box kind of qualities. It was just like a 6 yards out, just a header. And that was it. He's so good, it seems, at getting in the right areas as a centre forward to just poke it in the net at crucial times. So honestly, Chelsea will probably snap him up for, I don't know, £50 million or something like that soon. It's getting to that kind of realm of possibility now. Yeah,
well, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, he is. He looks like a proper striker, almost like an old-fashioned striker in that his movement seems to be really good. He sniffs out the chances, and when the chance comes, he he buries it, and it was a really well directed header. It was a good move, actually, a long move from Flew. Showed them at the best, really, and he finished it off wonderfully. So, yeah, well, 4 in 5 big goals, 4 1-0 wins in a row now for Flew, and he's got the one in all of them, I think. So
No, he's got. I think he's scored in 4 of them.
three of the 4 wins.
3 of the 4 games. I think Arias got the winner against Palmeiras, I think. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So he's still exceptionally good.
It is exceptionally good, and they did lose in the cup to Juventude, so they did have a little bit of a blip. But I think the important thing to note in that game, moving on from Elias for a second, is that Thiago Silva wasn't on the pitch in that game. He didn't play a minute of that game, and since he returned to Flu, he's played 4 games, 4 90-minute games, 360 minutes, and like we said, all of those games finished 1-0 to Fluminense. They're yet to concede a goal with Thiago Silva on the pitch. I mean, that is it may be a coincidence in some respects, but I don't think it really is when they've been so poor. And for him to come in as a leader of that back line and to keep 4 clean sheets in a row from where they were, you have to say just Thiago Silva take a bow, really. I mean, Elias has been doing it one end, he's been doing it at the other end, and they're in a decent position now. They're still in the relegation zone, aren't they? But I don't think there's any way they get relegated now. Obviously, there'll probably be a bit of a setback at some stage, but from where they've been, anything that includes avoiding relegation this season has to be accepted by the fan base, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does, James. From, like you said, from where they were a couple of months ago, you've got to give credit to Menezes as well.
Menezes.
Menendez, sorry.
Menezes.
Yeah, you say.
You always say Menendez, but it's just Menezes.
Yeah, I can't get my head around it. There's too many similar syllables in there. Menendez.
Menezes.
But Menezes.
Menendez.
But to say it like it's confusing. But you've got to give him props because he's
just call him Mano. That's his first name, Mano.
We'll call him that then, Mano. But it's you've got to give props to him because it's no fluke either. He's got them defensively sound, and you can see him sort of almost like Jose Mourinho has like score 1 goal and we shut up shop and we win 1-0. It's happened 4 times in a row in the league, and and it's no coincidence at all that Thiago Silva has been, the figurehead of that, really coming back in. It's his team, it's his city, isn't it, as well? And he's just, he's galvanised the whole place. He's got a good sort of partnership by the look of it, sort of tutoring young Caio Elias. So, and he's doing it, like you said, at the other end of the pitch, James. It's just it's a match made in heaven, looking from the outside in. And my prediction of them getting relegated seems absolutely wild now, but at the time you've got to say it did look incredibly likely like they would. Still a possibility, but like you said, I don't see it now. I think they'll rise up the table, and anything, like you said, other than relegation has to be accepted. Even if it's 17th, which I don't think it will be. I think they'll probably finish sort of maybe mid-table, possibly. But it's got to be accepted really from where they were. It could be a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah, they won't be celebrating anything, I don't think, but accepted in the terms of, look, let's just put that to bed and move on, and hopefully Mano can get them back where they feel and where they do really belong, towards the top end of the table. There were other young players who did well, George, just before we do reveal the award winner. Red Bull Bragantino, well known obviously as a Red Bull club, had a couple of young players who did well this week. Jonathan, left winger, 21-year-old, got a goal in their 2-2 draw with Vasco. But I thought the assist was more impressive on that one, actually, which was 20-year-old Gustavinho, who did really well to beat his man, get in front of his man when it looked like the defender had won the race really to the ball. He nicked it past him, got round the other side, put a good ball in for Jonathan to finish. So 2 young players linking up well there for Red Bull, weren't they?
Yeah, definitely, James. Yeah, it was a nice goal, that, wasn't it? Nice first time finish, wasn't it, for Jonathan, or John, I think, as it came up on on
Was it?
the I think that was what he's known by, John. And it was a nice finish, first time again on another day, could have won the award. But the award has gone to James, a player in the same game, hasn't it?
It has, but there was just one more I wanted to mention quickly first as well, which was Cadu from Gallo, who put a nice near post header as well, 20 years old. So, yeah, like you said, a lot of young players there turning up, and I'm sure there was a couple more who didn't get on the kind of the goals and assist ball. But yeah, like you say, you can introduce this one because I know he's a big friend of yours. General Vasco game. I mean, he could have gone to any of those players. I think if anybody was kind of being, pointing something out here, they might say this fella's won on basis of connections, basically to the award givers. I think.
Oh, you think it might be rigged slightly?
Might be rigged, yeah.
But yeah, just to mention Cadu, that was a nice header, wasn't it, as well? I know it didn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, and Gala was struggling a little bit, I think, but it was a nice moment for him. Like you said, the award winner is a man named GB. So, like you said, it's a little bit contentious, maybe. But if you want to contend it, give me a message. You know what I mean?
Call the chief of police.
I'm here for it. As you say, I don't care. I thought, to be fair, he's, I thought he deserved it. It was a nice goal. Nice diving header. Had to get low and stoop and head it in. He's only 19, I think.
Yeah, 19.
So he's come through at the Vasco Academy. It's his first goal, in the first team, and I think he deserved it, and he had something to say, James. After, I mean, it's only his second Serie A appearance. The other one was a 19-minute appearance against Gremio at the end of July. So, yeah, he's been on social media at the end of the game, speaking about the goal, and it sounds as if he did have a bit of he did have some kind of problems with injuries here, but you know what, it's not translating it, so I can't quite say it word for word, but I think he was just saying how proud he was to score his first goal, and he'd been out for some time with a lengthy injury, and he was so happy to score, basically. And yeah, it was a nice goal, but it does look like he has been here through the youth academies for quite some time now, so would have meant a lot to him, that. And his actual name, he does go with GB on his shirt. I don't know the origin behind that, number 19, but his actual name is Gabriel Silva. So
you found it. How did you find that?
So social media.
Was it? Yeah, there you go. It can be used for some good after all. But I did wonder because, I was waiting when I saw the goal. Obviously, the goal, like you saw, John pops up. And I thought, what's he going to say? Yeah, GB. And I was looking through the kind of the aftermath of the game. And even the manager, Rafael Paiva, calls him GB. He doesn't know like GB, we know him well. It's a funny one, that, isn't it?
It is a funny one, but it's like JP as well for Vasco as well. I don't understand it. His name, it doesn't. It obviously it's G, but it's not B. So I wonder what B is. But again, we know what the Brazilian players are like. They do have, they do have a lot of names in there. So maybe it is, initial for one of his middle names or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
could just be a nickname. They often get nicknames and then they run with it. I mean, it is interesting. Because it's a good way of standing out. And, you have to, your name's Gabriel Silva. I mean, obviously your football will do the talking, but at times, maybe you just need something a little different. Maybe this is a trend we'll see now from young players coming through in Brazil. Perhaps.
Potentially, it might be a craze. I don't know, but yeah, literally just GB on the back of his shirt. So yeah, obviously a favourite of mine. Like you said, with because of obvious reasons. But yeah, it's good to give that award to him. I was happy to see he scored, and let's see where he can go from there.
Yeah, and it certainly does make him stand out. It certainly does make you kind of remember him. And he started the game. I mean, the manager's still interim, I believe. Rafael Paiva has put a lot of faith in him. He said it's no surprise that they've known him very well. He said he's an extremely talented player. He's a player of stature, but he has a lot of quality to play as a floating forward, he said. So Piver said that they believe that he's a 9, like a mixture of a 9 and a 10. So maybe something like a false 9. But he did urge patience, from the fan base, which always you do need to do. But Vasco, a decent point for them back to, playing some of the young players, which is what Piver had success doing. I saw Phil Coutinho came on again and unfortunately did get injured. Like we say, these players do tend to rock up and inevitably they seem to play a little bit and then they get injured. And Coutinho, I think, is going to be out for a couple of weeks now with an injury as well. But anyway, young player of the round, well deserved for Mr. GB, Mr. Gabriel Silva.
Well, the Vasco team, James, particularly on this game, it's a mixture of like really young players and then really old players. There was Payet in there. He started the game. Maicon started the game. He's 35 now, from a Porto defender. But also, like you said, a young player who got a nice goal as well, Adson, who added to GB's goal and gave Vasco the lead after coming from behind in this game. It was a nice sort of swept finish into the bottom corner. And he got man of the match in this game as well. So, they do have good quality young players. I can't believe Rafael Paiva hasn't been given the go-ahead and given the match. It's ridiculous because he's done such a good job. Also, I did see the fans, James. Vegetti came on at half-time, the veteran Argentine striker. And I saw a lot of the fans sort of... He assisted one of the goals. I think it might have been GB's goal. No, it was Adson's goal. A lot of the fans were saying he's the main reason he needs to play. Basically, we're nothing without Vegetti. So obviously he holds a lot of weight with the fans. So maybe Paiva has seen that, and I don't know. He was big friends with the man who was going to come in, wasn't he? Who eventually went to Corinthians, I think. He obviously holds a lot of weight there.
Yeah, and he is a good player for them. Anyway, let's move on, George. So last award, a goal of the round, and this was a very, very straightforward award to give. A lot of headers this week, a lot of scrappy goals, but one absolute belter of a goal from Bruno Henrique for Inter, an absolute, just a screamer from range. But so I must admit, George, you text me and said, Henrique's goal wins it. And I looked and I thought, fucking hell, 4 Henrique scored in this game.
I know. Yeah,
so I thought, oh my God, well, which one? But then you watch the goals back and, it's blatantly obvious. I mean, Bruno Henrique, it's a bit of a scramble around the box. He picks it up probably 30 yards out and he just absolutely smashes it. Just rises, straight in the top corner. It doesn't go anywhere. The keeper's got no chance. It's a brilliant, brilliant goal. Put them 1-0 up against Palmeiras in what would have been a massive win for them, really, and a massive defeat for Palmeiras. But they came back, 89th minute goal from Ronnie. But it was just interesting that so many Henriques scored. I mean, it's not an uncommon name, but Mateus Henrique scored for Cruzeiro, Pedro Henrique scored for Corinthians, and Luis Henrique scored for Botafogo as well. So, there you go. That just shows. I don't know what that shows, but it shows something, doesn't it?
But it doesn't happen in the Premier League, does it? That, James, you don't get 4 scorers of the same name. I don't know if that's ever happened in Premier League history. So it's quite incredible. 4 people of the same name have scored in the same match week. I think that's quite funny. But then again, I seem to take interest in those sort of pointless stats. But another goal in this game was the Ronnie goal was really nice. It was a nice chipped sort of ball through to him, and he just lobbed the goalkeeper with a nice lob finish. Obviously, it was quite a pleasing goal. But this one was way ahead of anything else. It was deserved win. I think it's actually, James, the first award we've given to an Inter player of any award in any category. So it's he wins it. He's obviously was in. He was in Saudi for a bit, wasn't he, with El Ittihad? So he played with likes of Benzema, didn't he? I think with Benzema, obviously former Palmeiras player, so it would have probably meant something to him to give them the lead in that game as well. But it was a really nice hit. Like you said, it was a bit of a scramble initially. I think I don't know the player who it was. Bustos, the Argentine right back, who managed to just fiddle the ball back to him. and he just took a touch, set himself, and then just buried it in the top corner. It was funny, there was a Palmeiras player down injured, just like on the floor as it went in the net. But yeah, obviously Inter, James, have had a terrible season. I think you keep defending them, which is, rightly so, it's your team as well. But, the second, they're just a point above the relegation zone in 16th position. I know they've got as many as 5 games in hand on some teams, but it's starting to look quite, sort of quite twitchy bum time, as they say, really, I think.
Well, of no win in 12 in all comps, and if you go no win in 12 in any team, you're in trouble. I think, obviously, they've got Mercado in. He still hasn't won a game yet. Like you said, 1 point above the drop. I mean, they do have those games in hand, but that can sometimes become a bit of a monkey on the back if you're down at the bottom. And something needs to change a bit. I've seen they've made some changes at the sporting director level or vice sporting director or something. Mercado seemed happy enough after the game. Obviously, a draw against Palmeiras is never necessarily a bad result. I mean, they beat them, didn't they? If you remember, very early on in the season, they did beat them, and it looked like they were being for a pretty good season. Then, obviously, all the flooding happened. It derailed them a bit. They've had a change in manager. Just one thing after another for Inter. It just hasn't been going well. They crashed out the Sudamericana. It's been just one of them. And again, a bit like maybe Gremio, a bit like Flu, maybe even Corinthians. You're just thinking, all right, let's just get through the season. No more, no disasters, obviously on the pitch. Let's just keep our heads above ground, really. But I think the same has to be, I mean, obviously not the same, but it's worth pointing out that Palmeiras are in pretty terrible form themselves. I mean, they've lost the 3 in a row before this, and without scoring a single goal. Obviously, they were 1-0 down in this one until the 89th minute, so they were on the verge of going 4 losses on the bounce without scoring a goal in any of them. I mean, for Palmeiras, that's pretty uncharted territory. And Abel Ferreira is for sure under pressure. There's been rumblings that perhaps he may be changed. He's played 300 games now there. That's a real heck of a run for a manager in Brazil. He's received support from Scolari and other Palmeiras legends who've come out and backed him. But you have to say that, I mean, they don't look good for the title, and anything but the title for Palmeiras is perhaps a failure. If they come, 4th, 5th, 6th, other teams below them are in good form. It's, I'd say he's on the brink a little bit if they don't start getting a couple of results.
I would agree with you, James. I think they're on terrible form. I think it's one win in 6 now. Yeah, one win in 6 in all competitions. They've got Flamengo, the second leg of the Brazilian Cup game, early hours of Thursday morning here. They're 2-0 down from the first leg. Yeah, he's under pressure. They're only 2 points ahead of Cruzeiro. They've played a game more. They're only 2 points ahead of Sao Paulo as well in 6th. And the 6 points off Botafogo in 1st. And like you said, anything but the title is seen as a failure. I think he's a few games away from the sack, personally.
Well, I mean, the next 2 games are enormous. They've got a double header with Flamengo. So they've got that second leg of the Brazilian Cup, which obviously it looks like they're going to need a pretty big performance to turn that around at home. And then they go again to the Maracanã and face Flamengo on Sunday, George. So that is an enormous game. If they lose both of those, it could be curtains. They then do have Botafogo as well in the Copa Libertadores. They've got Sao Paulo coming up in a big derby. It's not getting any easier for them, but We'll have to keep an eye on Palmeiras. Anyway, let's crack on, George, because we are running a little long and I've got 5-a-side to get to. So let's run through the fixtures that are upcoming and look at those 2 big games that we're going to cover in next week's show.
Yeah, let's take a look at the fixtures then, James. So like I said, it is a 1-week match day again, starting on the 10th of August. Saturday the 10th of August, 8 p.m. English time, Fortaleza play Criciúma, and then 11 p.m. Cuiabá against Grêmio. Into Sunday the 11th of August, early hours, 1:30 a.m. Corinthians against RB Bragantino. Also at the same time, Cruzeiro, big derby game against Galo. At the same time, also Vasco play Fluminense. 3 p.m. then, English time, Juventude play Botafogo. 8 p.m. Bahia host Vitoria. Flamengo host Palmeiras in that big game you mentioned, James. Sao Paulo against Atletico GO. And then Inter face Atletico Paranense at 11 p.m. And that concludes the match day fixtures.
Yeah, fantastic. So actually, you know what? I mean, we're going to pick 2 games there, but there is actually 4 derbies to pick from in that round of fixtures. So George, you want to go first? I think I know what you're going to pick, but you want to pick your game of the week?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious this one, James. I'm going to go with Cruzeiro Galo, the Belo Horizonte derby. And my team, of course, Galo, beat them 3-0 at home earlier on in the season, very early on in the season. They'll be looking to, get back to winning ways, really, and beat them again. I know it's a massively hotly contested derby. And let's wait and see. But they're under pressure, Galo, James. I think Milito is really under pressure. They're not having a good season at all. In 9th position, they're kind of way off the Libertadores places, 9 points away from Palmeiras in 4th. They need a result. I think he's gone. I'm going to say I think he's gone if they lose this game.
Yeah, we didn't touch on Galo. They had a terrible result, lost to Criciúma in what was Ede's last game, wasn't it? A notable game. They wore a special shirt, which we didn't mention, but we've mentioned it now. So he's going to be their sporting director, as we touched on last week. But yeah, you're right. Galo need a win. Cruzeiro will be hoping to bounce back. I remember in the early part of the season when Galo beat them pretty comfortably. I think there was a lot of trolling going on social media. So let's see if Cruzeiro will surely be pumped up, and they'll be disappointed that they couldn't go into that game with a win. Let's hope the pitch holds out for them. So yeah, that'll be a big game. So my one, I think
just to point out before you reveal yours, James, the playing in a Brazilian in the Brazilian Cup before that on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday evening. They're playing against Serie B side CRB. So they sit in mid-table in Serie B. They drew 2 apiece in the first leg. Galo were 2-0 down after 7 minutes in that game. They came back to draw 2-2. So, yeah, like I say, he needs a result. I think he's gone if they lose this game. I really do. They're in terrible need of something.
Well, I mean, if he's gone, if they lose that game, he won't be gone. It won't be long before he goes, even if they win it, to be fair, if they don't pick up. But yeah, it's definitely a crunch game, you'd have to say, for Galo and for Milito. But so the one I'm going to go with is pretty obvious as well. As we said there, Flamengo Palmeiras, huge game. Bigger even for the fact that Palmeiras are in terrible form. There's that midweek game. There's plenty to look forward to in that. Obviously, Palmeiras need a result. Flamengo, we didn't really touch on too much as well in this game, but they got a win as well. Sorry, no, they didn't. They lost, didn't they? They lost to Sao Paulo. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, so, Flamengo as well have stuttered ever so slightly in the past few weeks. So, they're by no means infallible, but, they'll go into this as favourites, you'd have to say. But it is at Palmeiras, is it?
Is that Palmeiras? It's at Palmeiras. Oh, so it isn't the league games at American are.
So you'd have to make Flamengo favourites. But as I say, there's a couple of other games in there as well. There's a Salvador derby, the Bavi derby, Bahia against Vitoria, which, Bahia will be hoping that they can arrest their terrible run at the moment. They haven't won for ages, and Vitoria with 2 wins on the bounce. So that's going to be one that, perhaps might throw up a little bit of a shock. And then you've got Vasco against Flu, which is, of course, a Rio derby as well, although perhaps not quite as big as the other ones in terms of kind of locality. But there's 4 enormous games which we'll look forward to, George, there, and then others besides, a big enough week for us to go over again. And before we go, George, you want to just go through the table as always and see where everybody ranks after everything that we've just spoken about?
Yeah, of course, it would be my pleasure to do so, James. So top of the table is Botafogo on 43 points. Second is Flamengo on 40. Third is Fortaleza on 39. Fourth is Palmeiras on 37. Fifth, Cruzeiro on 35. Also on 35 points is Sao Paulo in 6th. In 7th is Bahia on 32. 8th is Atletico Paranense on 28. Also on 28 is Galo in 9th. On 26 points is RB Bragantino in mid-table 10th. 11th is Vasco on 24. Also on 24, 12th position is Criciúma. 22 points and 13th position is Juventude. 21 points in 14th is Grêmio. 15th place is Vitoria on 21 as well. And 16th is Inter, hovering above the relegation zone with 21 points as well. Into 17th position, Fluminense on 20. 18th is Corinthians on 20. 19th is Cuiabá on 17. And 20th position, GO, look gone, I think, James. They're only on 12 points.
Yeah, certainly not looking good for Gio. They just cannot get themselves going, and it doesn't look any easier against Sao Paulo for them next time out. So, George, some big games to look forward to. Another week expertly wrapped up, I have to say. I hope everybody at home enjoyed it. What are you going to do with the rest of your evening?
I don't know, really, James. Sort this out and put it online.
Yeah, that's right. And anyway, enjoy the week, George. Enjoy the week, everybody. Take care. Adios.
Adios.
Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Song by summer vibes, we're dancing in the heat. Go, go, go. Can't be talking Brazil ball, spreading love in every way. In the sound of paradise, we're here to stay.